This was never a residential zone. This was a place where the spirits lived and was for ceremony and spiritual work. So we're very happy that it didn't become someone's private estate, and that we are able to steward the land in the way that we are and to share it with people like you who come here to do spiritual work. So that's that's a fun thing I wanted to share.
Thank you, Mike.
And then the morning yoga will take place in the empty half of this room from 7 until 8 in the morning before breakfast. For those of you who are hardcore yogis and yoginis, or
how many yogis are there?
Or beginners who are just interested in dabbling.
Oh, good.
Great.
Who's doing the leading the yoga? You're doing the yoga, right? You.
I'm doing Catskills yoga and I'm leading a hike for a different program.
That's it.
But Golri is our resident yoga teacher. Will be teaching your yoga tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Anyone who just straggled in, are you applying for continuing education credits? No, still have just one.
Just applying for the education, not the credit.
That's right.
Very good.
The inherent value. So that's it for my announcements. I'm delighted to welcome back Isa Gucciardi and Robert Thurman to lead us in a retreat on the topic of shamans and siddhas. And without any further ado, I will turn it over to Isa.
All right, let's go ahead and open circle.
Well, I just want to welcome Isa. I'm a little bit of a host here. And, I sort of live here, and I retired from Colombia. So I'd like to welcome Isa back and to do this Shaman Circle. And
Come step
welcome
into
all
the
of you
circle.
to join that. And we also have to be in a Siddha mandala. Remember, we're doing both. So you have to think of the circle as a mandala too, filled with deities. Okay. Hello, Ron. You have time tomorrow? I need you very much. Please save me time.
We'll talk.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to say a phrase and you can say it after me. And the reason that we're opening circle, can you hear me okay? I should probably get
It
this.
doesn't actually sound like it.
Yeah.
Even shamans can use electronics.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, you don't really have a caller, right? So put on the scarf.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. So
Okay.
one of the things that we're doing, so one of the reasons that we are opening circle, from a shamanic perspective, we are creating a container for, in this case, the teachings that will be coming over the next few days. And so we create a container by calling the forces of that are often in shamanism called compassionate spirits, which are the spirits of nature to a large extent. And so we will be saying a prayer and a song, which is a very common way that containers are created in shamanic practice. So I'll be saying a phrase and you can say it after me. The sun is a circle.
The sun is a circle.
The moon is a circle.
The moon is a circle.
The earth is a circle.
Earth is a circle.
The drum is a circle.
The drum is a circle.
We are a circle within a circle.
We are a circle within a circle.
Beauty before me.
Beauty before me.
Beauty behind me.
Beauty behind me.
Beauty to my left side.
Beauty to my left side.
Beauty to my right side.
Beauty to my right side.
Beauty below me.
Beauty below me.
Beauty above me. Beauty above me, beauty all around 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 me. Thank you.
Very nice. Maybe can I add something?
Sure.
Just while we're standing in the circle. So the Buddhists, which are the tradition of the Siddhas, or some of the Siddhas, there are also Hindu Siddhas in ancient India. And the Buddhists have a preposterous idea from a materialist point of view of what Buddhas are. And they disagree that there is any one creator of the universe, that it sort of can be blamed on one being, divine or whatever type. But they do think that when you become a Buddha, which everyone is going to become, everyone here and everyone everywhere, that they will have the ability to arrange their environment for the benefit of all the beings around them who are not yet Buddhas, because those beings they're seeking happiness, and final happiness really only can come from being kind of one with reality. So they have this concept of mandala, which is something like a sacred, just like this sacred circle. And they believe that, for example, a female Buddha named Buddha Lochana in Sanskrit, which means the Buddha eye, is the earth element. That Mamaki is the water element. These are female Buddhas. That Pandaravasini is the fire element. And that Tara, Samaya Tara, is the wind element. So they think that if we actually knew what reality was, we would feel that everything is made of these four loving female Buddhas. The earth, the solidity of the floor and of our bodies, the fluidity and cohesion of different things, the warmth, the temperature of them, and the movement of them, which are earth, water, fire, wind. And then the space is something called, in which it all occurs, is another female Buddha named Vajradatishvari, the goddess of the creatrix, or the goddess of the realm of Vajra, which is sort of untranslatable. It's sort of clear, it's called clear light of the void. It's like the ultimate energy of the universe. So in the Siddha world, one can imagine that we are all in the embrace of the positive, loving, compassionate, all-knowing beings, and that our sense of the inadequacy of our environment and the problems with it have to do with our failure to fully understand it. And if it did, we would see that everything is there, enabling us to shape it and our lives and the world's life for the benefit of all the beings. So I never thought when we did this before, Isa, this thing of beauty all around me and so on is like evoking a mandala. It's really the same thing. So you might want to think that you're in the medicine Buddha or the 5 female Buddhas elemental mandala while you're here this weekend.
And the medicine Buddha mandala is over here.
Yeah, there is a powder,
Yeah.
what they call a color particle form of that mandala over there that you can look at later, which is considered like a blueprint. And that all of your companions, you yourself, unbeknownst to you, and all of your companions are all divine Buddha beings in that same elemental embrace. And that instead of sort of the normal notion of the environment having a lot of lurking dangers and germs and ticks and bears and coyotes and who knows what, like a weird thing, that everything is good. But that still doesn't mean go hug a tick. But because they don't know that they're good and therefore they bear some poison, unfortunately. So anyway, it's a similar evocation that you can enjoy this weekend. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you, Isa.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So Isa, you are the guest, so you speak first, please.
Okay, all right. So one of the things that I'd like to do, Bob, do we want to go around and have everyone introduce themselves? Bob, do you want to have people introduce themselves? Is that okay with you?
It's sure.
I'd love to do that because I get to know you a little bit.
But we restrict the self-introduction to their experience in the present life. If they start recounting former lives, I think we'll not get around the circle.
Good point, Bob. So maybe we can go around the circle and you can say your name and just say, where you came from and what brought you here and what you'd like to get out of the class.
Do you want to do clockwise or counterclockwise?
What would you prefer?
What?
What do you prefer?
I think, well, clockwise actually is better.
Okay, all right.
Although she's ready to go, she could start.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Jasenovac. I'm from Pennsylvania. And what brought me here? The opportunity to be in the presence of Robert Thurman and Isa Gucciardi. I feel like I get to sit amongst the gods, and we are all gods. So I know, I know, but I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Oh, nice.
Hello, my name's Andrea. I came here from Portland, Oregon, and I'm here because I've always thought I was a shaman, and I felt that way and negotiate that in my head, but I never actually did anything to be one. I just thought if I lived in another time, I'd been trained properly, and I didn't live in that time, so I wasn't. And now I thought, well, maybe I should go find that training.
Hi, I'm Ron. I'm a massage therapist here. I just love to be with the great teachers.
Ron is a great healer. He really is good. And I'm desperate to have him work on my shoulder tomorrow. Before I go to Bhutan, my shoulder is okay. Please go ahead.
I know Bhutan well. My name is Jeffrey. I'm from Maui, and I'm an architect and a builder of bamboo homes, and I'm here to learn.
You came from Maui just now? Really? Just for this? No, you're just here with me. Really? No. That's great. Thank you. We're honored.
My name is Patrice. I've been a member of Tibet House for many years, and I was here last year. Unfortunately, I sort of fell off the path, so I came back for a refresher.
That's so nice. Thank you for being a member of Tibet House for many years. It's very hard to get members of Tibet House because we're not a cult. We're not a religion. We're just a cultural preservation organization, So it's rare to have someone to be a faithful member. Thank you so much. Please.
My name is Emery, and I come from the San Francisco Bay Area. I studied with Isa, and so I learned about this through Isa, and I'm very happy to be here to learn from you and Isa both.
My name is Christina. I came from Dallas, Texas.
Wow.
I'm a New Yorker, and I've been here before. I'm a yogi, and I'm just an eternal student. So I'm here to learn and pay attention and see what happens.
I'm Jean, and I'm from Dallas,
Could you
Texas.
please hold the mic close? You're dealing with a deaf person.
Okay, right here. Is this good?
Like an ice cream cup. Very close.
Oh, very close.
Oh, thank you. There you go.
I'm Jean, and I'm from Dallas, Texas also.
Also from Dallas.
And we practice yoga together,
Oh,
Christine and I. And I'm here to learn and be with nature.
My name is Gwen, and I'm from Michigan, and I've been involved with shamanism and Buddhism since my early 20s. And a number of months ago, I went to Ladakh, and I came back from Ladakh, and I kept having this mantra, Menla, Menla, Menla. I went on the site, and here I saw this class that had to do with shamanism and Tantra. I thought, this is me. And so that's why I'm here.
By the way, you all don't have to be restricted to just why you came here. You could talk about anything about yourself that you like. It's okay, but it's interesting why you came. Menla, did you hear it in Malacca as a mantra?
No, when I came home, it just was in my mind.
Really?
I knew about it before, but it was.
You know what it means, Menla? Men is medicine and La means teacher. So it's the name of this blue Buddha, which is a form of the ordinary Buddha because Buddhas can shape change, you know. And when they think about successes of beings, they get the blues. Meaning they turn blue. But the blue, the dark blue color is considered to be the energy of desire, which is what makes life, you know, although it gets out of hand, as we know, turned into ultimate reality, perfection, wisdom, it's called. So the blue light, the blue rays are considered, therefore, supremely healing. So that's why Menla, so that's what Menla means, you know, is medicine Buddha. So that's very auspicious. Thank you for coming. Sorry to interrupt. Great.
Hey, that's nice and loud. My name is Matt. I'm from Brooklyn, but I recently gave up my apartment and I'm starting a 6-month more nomadic journey. And thought this was the perfect place to kick that off and ground myself here.
Are you familiar with the work of the poet Basho?
No.
Well, you might look it up. Kenneth Yuasa translation, Y-U-A-S-A, called Deep Journey to the North, or Journey to the Deep North. And he's going on a kind of 1-year pilgrimage from his little hut, not Brooklyn, but a little hut outside of Edo, the old name for Tokyo. And he went all around Japan, you know, in a circle and wrote haiku as he went around. Very amazing book. You'll like it, I think, very much.
That's great. Thank you.
I'm Jim. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a psychotherapist and Tai Chi instructor. I've studied Tibetan Buddhism for many, many years, Drepung Losung Institute. And I have also a strong interest in shamanism, so I'm looking to learn more, absorb what I can.
Hello, Carrie Mae Rose, currently working as the spa manager here on property and also living here at Menla.
Oh, Carrie Mae.
I'm also an artist, designer, and futurist, so I have lots of visions about the future and been a seeker and a meditator for many years. And I feel super blessed to be living in this 0.2 gravity. I feel lighter already. No, I'm loving being here and learning a lot and enjoying sitting in this evening. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gul Rees. I work at the spa with Carrie Mae. I'm the spa coordinator and also live on the properties. It's an amazing blessing to be here. It's beyond my understanding, but it's a blessing nevertheless. And I'm in love with all the teachings and your presence and everything that you share. And it's so beautiful and endearing and intimate that Isa can speak a little bit of Farsi to me. It's so beautiful. So thank you for being here and sharing.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Craig. I also live and work here, and also Isa's personal taxi service. This is I would say, one of our best programs. So I'm always glad to be here for this one. It's definitely a special moment and good teachings, and it should be a good week. Thank you.
I'm so happy to see 4 or 5 of our own people at Menla being here. And I'm so happy when you come to programs. I really think it's wonderful. Thank you. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Oskald Melnichuk. I'm a writer and teacher. I live in Medford, Massachusetts. And I've been a member of the Kurakula Center there for the last 20 so years, a student of Geshe Tsulka's. I'm here in part because I fell in love with the Vimalakirti Sutra, and I've heard many of your YouTube lectures and those of others on it. And my wife is very interested in shamanism, so I thought this would be an ideal occasion to listen to a conversation between these 2 fantastic teachings. So thank you for the opportunity. I also had a chance to listen to you and the Dalai Lama, along with 5,000 other people at Lehigh about 10 years ago on the Lamrim Chenmo.
Oh,
So,
yes.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So how is Geshe Tsulga? He's well?
Yeah, another life.
It's a wonderful center, everyone, in Medford, Massachusetts, a Buddhist center run by this gentleman, Geshe Tsulga. Wonderful place. I visited it last year. Or was it last year? Yeah, last year.
Yes.
Please.
My name is Jonathan, and seeing the two topics presented, Buddhism and shamanism together, was of great interest to me. I'm pretty much just new to the whole thing, but it's pretty awesome. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Breja, and I'm from the Berkshires with Jonathan. And what brought me here today was a deep journey and study of shamanism in my life, and Jonathan being very interested in Buddhism. And we are celebrating our 24th wedding anniversary by coming here and watching these two things dance together.
Thank you for sharing that.
Good evening. My name is Steve. I came from Miami. I've always kind of had a sense that there was a connection between shamanism and Buddhist practice, the cities of India and of Tibet. And of course, I thought this would be an excellent opportunity to kind of go very deeply into that.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Debbie, and I'm coming from Montreal, Quebec. And basically, I came here to go hiking. I got this through, I think, on a site that Sharon Salzberg was promoting, and asked a friend of mine if they'd be interested in going to the beautiful Catskills to go hiking. And this is all absolutely a surprise and the most serendipitous piece, because I've studied Buddhism for many, many, many years. And in fact, Menla has been sitting in my office for the past 10 years. I look at her every day and never realized who she was. I got it at the Omega Institute and just thought it was beautiful. And so this is really quite special for me to find all this out. So great surprise, and happy to be here.
How nice.
My name is Virginia. I'm coming here from Somerville, Massachusetts. I've been doing a lot of organizing recently around climate emergency work, and getting to the point where I wanted to find something to do to kind of connect directly with the earth as a kind of source of compassion, strength to draw on. I've been really inspired by Joanna Macy's work, and I'm actually joining the hikes as well, but I'm really looking forward to getting to hear these lectures in the evenings.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Don. I'm from Western Canada. I was with Gwen in Ladakh, and I had some very interesting feelings and energetic experiences in the temples there. And my journey started with ayahuasca in Peru, so maybe you can explain all this to me.
Unfortunately, it's inexplicable, but it's experienceable. Luckily.
Hi, my name is Denise. I'm from Nyack, New York, and I was basically looking for hiking too. I've got lots of little kitties at home, and I kind of needed a little bit of R&R. And I've recently been listening, returned on to, I'm Jewish, but I was listening to Sylvia Boorstein. And I just was so like enthralled with her and her teaching and what she was talking about. And I guess her being Jewish too, I really connected with it. And I just wanted to learn more about it. So I thought this was a really great place to come.
Wonderful. Happy New Year.
Thanks.
Shana Tova. We should have a shofar horn to blow. I think, how long is the New Year ceremony last? From the day was a couple of days ago, right? Does it last for a week or two or something?
No, it's a couple of days.
Sort of the New Year celebration?
We celebrate it for 2 days, but I'm not religious.
Okay.
I can't hear you.
October 8th and 9th, right?
Oh, I don't really, so I'm not really a practicing Jew so much. I mean, I do the traditional things with my family, but so we do it for like 2 days, but other people might celebrate it a little.
But we can play.
Yeah.
You don't have to practice. It's a nice thing. It's so old, it's like 5,000 years or something. It's really a lot of years. Please go ahead, it's an old one. Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Cesar. I'm from Bogota, Colombia, South America, but I'm
Bogota?
Yes, Bogota.
Bienvenido.
Gracias. Good Spanish. But I'm teaching this year at NYU. I'm a human rights lawyer and teacher. And I've worked quite a bit with indigenous peoples of the Amazon region, represent them in court, work with them on campaigns against oil drilling, mining. And it was in the context of doing that type of work that I came across some spiritual leaders of those communities, and I was deeply moved by what I heard and saw, especially in the Ecuadorian Amazon. And then about 6 years ago, I got interested in meditation, and I've been practicing lately in the kind of the Vipassana tradition. I recently did a retreat at IMS, Inside Meditation Society. And this, when I saw the announcement for this course, I thought, well, this is kind of the convergence of the two traditions and interests that to me resonate strongly with what I do. And I can kind of hint at connections, but I would want to learn a lot more about them and incorporate hopefully that into my practice, both personal and professional. I'm also now working almost full-time on climate change litigation, so that connection is also important to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias.
My name is Lori, and I'm from New York City. And I'm a student of Buddhism, and I'm really curious about energy. I know nothing about shamanism, but I do really like the energy of people in groups, so I'm looking forward to that.
Hi, my name is Beth. I come from Nova Scotia. This is my second visit to Menla. I love it here, so I'm happy to be back. I'm a student of Isa's for the past few years. I'm a depth hypnosis practitioner. And shamanism and Buddhism are two of the pillars of depth hypnosis. So for me to be able to be in circle is great, and to have a refresher and more learning on both of those aspects supports me, and it supports my practice. So I'm so happy to be here.
Hi, my name is Luann, and I come from Woodstock. I'm a Buddhist. And I came here because I had, when I was 20, I had what would probably be called a shamanic experience. And I don't understand it, and I've spent my whole life trying to understand what happened. And it changed me for the better, and it made me a seeker, and I'm trying to learn. Thank you.
That's good.
Hi, my name is Peter Occhio-Grosso. I'm also a student of Buddhism, student of Bob's, and actually, thank you, Bob, for helping me 30 years ago, getting my book on world religions to be less full of errors about Buddhism. I also remember when you used to teach on the Vimalakirti Sutra at Dharmaware in Woodstock, where I also come from. Drove all the way here from Woodstock. It's a great long journey. And, you know, to be honest, I spend too much time in my head, and I've been learning more about the relationship of Tantra and the Mahasiddhas to the Buddhist tradition that I've been studying, working now with Mingyur Rinpoche as well, to get a little deeper into it. But I need to, more than ever, get out of my head and into my body. And I'm hoping that you and Isa can help to facilitate that, because I just, I need to move forward. It's not going to happen in my head, so hopefully it'll happen in my head. Well, no, that was the ayahuasca part too. But anyway, I'm really happy to be here with such a great group of people. I feel like I found a new sangha already. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
My name is Christine, and I am also from Woodstock. And I'm a student at KTD. My teachers are Lama Karma and Lama Zopa. And just before really why we're here, not why we're here, but how we got here, Luann and Peter and I were in a study group at KTD, and we had just finished reading the book called Cities of Ga, which are recollections of cities, and these recollections come directly from Khenpo Karda Rinpoche. So having just finished that and noticing this program, we thought, okay, this is for us. So we're here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Good evening. My name is Maria, and I am originally also from Bogota, Colombia, but I came from Florida this time. So I've been walking the path with medicine for the last 10 years of my life, walking with the elders in Colombia and learning traditional ways of healing. And along that path, I've also developed a Vipassana practice as well. And at this very moment, I'm in the middle of a master's program in consciousness studies. Part of my project is a 7-month journey to touch on different subjects related to plant medicine work and the role of women in the world of medicine. Because most of my teachers have frequently been male. So for some mysterious reason, a lot of women have been aligned. And this was the first of the things that I wanted to do, and so happens that Isa is also a woman. So I'm very honored and happy to be here starting off this 7-month journey.
Gracias. Gracias. Muchísimas.
Good evening, my name is Maxine and I'm from Montreal, and I came here to hike, and I'm pleased to be here to have the opportunity to listen and learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxine. Fine. So, no, Isa, no, you have to say, why did you come here?
Okay, my name is Isa, and I came here.
Don't say it, say it.
I came here because I love Bob, and I came here because I love this land. And I came here to try to help serve the land by bringing forward some of the teachings that have been traditionally part of the people who have been here, who have been listening to the land. And I'm here to serve Bob.
And so, can I add a little something to your story, because it's so marvelous, and
Sure.
You're shy to mention it, I can tell. And Isa originally came here, I don't know, was it 15 years ago or 10 years ago?
5 years ago.
What?
5 years ago.
Only 5? Well, whatever it was.
Feels like a lot longer, yeah.
With some Tibetan monks that she was helping travel and chant, around the country very kindly. She took a break from her own organization called the Foundation of the Sacred Stream in Berkeley and in San Francisco. And she was helping take them around, which helped, they were doing performing and sharing their dharma and raising funds for the young monks in their monasteries back in India. And they made that mandala for the first time when they first came. And then I think this is another version by another set of monks from the same monastery, Ganden Monastery. And then Isa was amazed that this place, this land, when she was younger and studying, she used to read the books of Eva Paracas, someone called Eva Paracas, who was married to a Chilean, I think, psychologist, Reichian psychologist, who And she was a medium, and there was someone here she called the guide, and she had a foundation of the Living Force, Center for the Living Force, and then Pathwork Center it became known as. And they had other centers, Virginia and in Europe. I think she was Austrian. And Lisa had read her books, channeling this guide, channeling this guide who was associated with this place, channeled through Eva Baracus writing all these books, and who passed away, years ago. And then Isa started hearing from the person who had channeled through the guide because of her sort of love of the land and connection to it. So she gave us some welcoming from the original, whatever that spirit is, whoever that person is, from wherever he is. It seemed to be a he, right?
Yeah.
So she helped us do that. So she has a special link to that in addition to us, And she came with Tibetans, but she's from the shamanic thing. It's really quite wonderful. So it's so interesting, all of your own experiences. I came here because my wife told me to. And also, we have this is a facility owned by Tibet House in New York, which is a facility for preserving Tibetan culture and eventually reseeding it in Tibet itself, helping the exiles keep it going, and then reseeding it in Tibet when the communists decide that Tibetan culture is an asset, Buddhism is an asset. It's a separate, has some differences to Chinese Buddhism, but it's also totally interconnected, and it can enrich Chinese Buddhism very much, and can be enriched also by Chinese Buddhism, and so in the future it will be fine. The moment is still this terrible, stressful thing, because of the communist oppression of all the religions. And because of communism being a materialist religion, actually. It's why they suppressed others. They're like religious fanatics. So anyway, this was given to us free, completely, without just lock, stock, and barrel, to make a healing center. And therefore, that's why we called it Menla, after the healing Buddha. In the sense that to make known the wisdom of Tibetan medicine, which connects to Tibetan spirituality. And one of the types of healers is a shaman, because of the 404 main diseases, 101 come from spiritual obstruction. And to that, if you're a Tibetan doctor, you send someone to a specialist who is a shamanic exorcist, actually. So they handle one quarter of the problems that people have. And in Tibetan medicine, actually. And so anyway, that's what we're doing here. But in the meantime, we don't yet have a Tibetan doctors visit here, but we don't have enough, economic flow to be able to keep one all the time. Until they come up, they like to live in the Tibetan community in Queens, where they have a wonderful Tibetan ghetto. And they all vote for AOC. So they're in her district in Queens. And she comes to the New Year's ceremony. I met her there. I have a great selfie with AOC at the Tibetan New Year. And so anyway, that's it. So then, and my wife really runs it, and she takes care of it with all the wonderful Michael and Lynn. I don't see Lynn here. She, unfortunately, I think she should come to some of our other sessions because she also likes Native American things and Brazilian things and shamanic things. She's the co-director with Michael. And so that's why I'm here. And also I'm very fond of Isa. And I like very much the connection between Buddhism and shamanism. And it has its own history. And sometimes it's positive. And then there has been a little bit of strife in some countries and cultures. But only, even originally in India, but only in what Buddha just never liked animal sacrifice of any kind. And and the Vedas actually involved animal sacrifice. So in a way, the Vedic priests were kind of shamans in a way, the Brahminical priests were. But Buddha was, guys, do it with little dough effigies, and offer flowers and things. And the gods don't need burgers, so don't offer animals. I mean, even if you're not a vegetarian, still don't try to make sacred animals. Don't try to make the killing sacred. And Buddha didn't like that. So in some countries, like in Mongolia, even in Tibet, there was a kind of a vegetarianization of shamanism there, even though they were not a vegetarian culture because of being nomadic and herding animals. But they didn't make killing. There was no sacred killing, in other words. So that's and shamanism doesn't have to do that, but some shamanism does, and then Buddhism has a problem with that. But otherwise, it's great. And Buddha himself was a kind of shaman, depending on how you define it. And anyway, and I'm particularly happy this time is this particular session, and I wanted to consult with you, and I think we should all think about it, because we here in the U.S. anyway have just been visited by a great shaman. I think Mother Earth's representative shaman in the form of that Greta Thunberg, who came in the sailboat like a Viking, and who spoke for the Earth in fearless manner to a bunch of semi-demonic climate change deniers, and earth imbalance deniers and weirdos. And wasn't she amazing? I'm sure everyone agrees. It was like this small child. And actually, I wanted to ask you, that's like a shamanic calling that she couldn't eat when she was 9 years old. And she was so connected to the nature and the animals. And she's very much involved, not only in the humans being bothered by the disasters and climate collapse, but all the extinctions. She always mentions that, the ecological extinction, because she feels all the animals and insects. She seems to be very connected. And the shamanic calling is where, at adolescence, or in her case, even before puberty and so forth, but you have a kind of breakdown where because you scatter your being and become connected to all the life force around you, and then they put you back together to sort of minister for them or something like that.
Yeah, that's one description. That's one description, sure. Absolutely.
Of the shamanic calling. Yeah. So of course nobody says that, and I wouldn't want the Republicans to have that to fling around and be nasty to her. But I do think she's like that. She's like a super shaman for the planet, and I so much admire her. I think we should all pray for her success, and that people really will finally listen to her. Because it's so amazing.
Yeah.
Really. I couldn't believe, we sat there, so these single little sentences she produces that have everything in it, just calmly placed or even forcefully placed. That's amazing. Anyway, so I'm very excited about that. So I offer my participation here in the spirit of Greta. That's what I'm offering. That's my offering. That's really the offering.
So what I thought we would do is I thought I'd go over the schedule of the class a little bit so you know what's coming. And so tonight we're here together, and tomorrow morning I will be taking the class on my own. And we will be, a lot of what we do together in the mornings, I'll be taking every morning on my own. And we'll be doing a lot of experiential work in the mornings. Tomorrow, we're going to be focusing on the shamanic journey. The next day, we're going to be looking at the nature of ritual. And the next day after that, we're going to be looking at the nature of initiation, which Bob just talked about. And we're going to, and you'll see when I do my little introduction talk why we're looking at those particular things, because those are things that are common to both shamanic and Siddhic traditions. Not the journey so much, but certainly the process of initiation and the use of ritual to draw the unseen forces into the world of the seen. And so I'll be with you in the mornings, and Bob will be doing the lectures in the afternoons from 4 to 6. And is it 4 or 4:30? I think it's 4 to 6.
4 to 6.
4 to 6.
It might, I retired from Columbia University, so I might do a little journey too.
Okay. All right. We'll do a little journey. All right. Okay.
I'm going native a little.
Okay.
Now that I retired
whatever you want to do.
Nasty academia.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with Bob. And
I'll give it a talk.
And then in the and then in the evenings, generally speaking, the evenings are reserved. Well, we may do. This is just a general idea. But in the evenings, it's a question and answer for everything that's gone on before, and the time to ask questions about it sounds like a lot of you have been studying shamanism and Buddhism for a long time. So you may have some questions, or you may want to have some perspectives that you'd like to introduce and get commentary on, or something like that. So that would be the evenings. And then, of course, during the day, you have time to be on the land and go see Ron and other massage therapists at the wonderful Duwa Spa. So don't miss the spa. So what I thought I'd do, Bob, is just do a little introductory lecture, and then you'll take it from there. Sound like a plan?
Yes, I'll have something to say afterwards.
Yes, a question?
Can I request that you talk about the schedule for the entire thing that you'll do the rest
We're just doing Shamans and Siddhas. Bob and I, a lot of people are here just for that one class. But for those of you that, the question was, can you talk about the whole 10 days? After Shamans and Siddhas, I'll be teaching a 2-day class on the Shamanic Journey, where we go more deeply, intensively into the journey. And
that starts on Monday?
That starts on Sunday night.
Good, okay.
And goes through Tuesday. And then Tuesday to Saturday, we're going to be doing some work with understanding power retrieval, understanding divination, and we're going to be doing some medicine wheel work here with the spirits of the land. So it's called the Shamanic Residency. So, but I'll be doing that. Maybe we'll tempt Bob to come back in once in a while.
No, I'll be on.
Oh, you gotta go.
I'll be in Norway for a
That's
few
right.
days.
Oh, that's right.
Representing or grant out to a bunch of CEOs in the energy industry in
great.
Norway
Great.
for 3 days, for 2 days.
Wow.
And then I'll be doing a journey in Bhutan.
Bhutan, right?
Yes.
So I'll hold down the fort here then.
Unfortunately. I'd rather stay here, actually. Really, I would. But,
I understand.
This is like a homey Bhutan.
I would rather stay here anytime. I get it.
But I have a duty to do that.
Okay, so that's what's happening over the next 10 days. But I'd like to just talk a little bit about the similarities and the differences between shamanism and Siddhism. And these are very broad brush ideas, and they're certainly not conclusive. They're a way of stepping into the work. And Bob will give his ideas about them as I introduce them. And so I'd like to start with the similarities. In both traditions, and of course, Bob, would you like to define the Siddhic tradition, and then I'll define the Shamanic tradition, so that so we know what we're talking about? You want to define Siddhism? I can do it. I can do it. Okay, so Siddhism is, the Siddhas, of course, are the masters of the unseen world, of the traditions that arise particularly from the Vedic traditions, the Buddhist traditions, the Hindu traditions, and they are considered to be holy people who have special powers, and they spend a lot of time trying to understand the unseen world and understanding what we would actually perceive as the miraculous. And shamans actually do that same sort of thing, but they function primarily in cultures that are earth-based. And the shamans in their communities are often called to be the doctors, the ministers, the problem solvers, the mediators. They work intensively with unseen forces, and their job is to actually bring the unseen forces of nature in particular into the affairs of humans. So in some ways, it's not exactly true, but definitely shamans are sort of the country people, and the Siddhas, of course, spend a lot of time in the country, but I think of them as a little bit more, maybe, you'll see why I say intellectual, because of the focus of the practice in just a moment. So, but both of them, so let's talk about the similarities. Both focus on the movement of energy and power from one place to another. They're both masters of moving. They understand the elements, They understand the elements of earth, fire, water, air, and void. Bob mentioned those earlier. They understand how they work, and they understand how they interface with the physical, and how they are the building blocks of the physical. And so they know how to move that energy around from one place to another. So in both traditions, this is something that happens. Both use the process of ritual to direct power from one place to another. You have ceremony, or you have the empowerments that are so common, and especially in Tibetan Buddhism. And then you have rituals or ceremonies that are designed to call the power of the unseen spirits into a particular place. And I'm hoping we're going to have some time to actually do that. There's a couple of shamanic practices that I would like to have some time to do. Maybe Bob, you say you want to do some journey kind of thing when you're lecturing at night. There's a process that I usually do in the Shamanic Journey class that I thought we might bring into this class, which is a very clear example of the movement of the unseen in the physical world. So maybe we'll do that. So the use of and the process of ritual to direct power from one place to another, and both use the process of initiation to create a ladder for skill development. And we're going to talk a lot about initiation. Bob touched on it. This moment that is often, as you say, right around puberty, and it can happen at any time, where the spirit world engulfs the experience of the initiate's relationship to reality. And that is the first initiation. It can be, that the initiation can happen, through some kind of a strong visual experience where they seem to have lost a particular connection with reality, but are very much in connection with an unseen world. It can also happen through a calamity where, and that's why I'm saying at any time, you can have an experience where you have to come back from it, and you have to learn how to heal yourself in order to come back from it. And often people who have that kind of experience after having learned what healing is through that particular initiation will then enter into a place with the older shamans where they are going through further initiations to deepen that understanding, to be able to offer that to others. And you were talking about not being able to find good education. And yes, that is why I work so hard, because I really want to be able to provide a good, coherent, initiation-driven kind of education to modern people that is actually adapted to the needs of modern people. But in a traditional society, a shaman receiving that kind of experience would then be taken under the wings of the older shaman and put through a series of initiations. And of course, you have in the Siddhic tradition, you have, as I mentioned, these ceremonies of empowerment, where you have the Lama or the Siddha gathering power of different Buddhas, filling themselves with that power, and then transmitting it to the initiates, the students. And that is an initiation for them. That is a stepping in to a body of knowledge that they did not have before that particular initiation or empowerment. And as I mentioned, both work with the elements, with light and sound as a basis for accessing deeper understanding. And one of the things you'll always hear me say is that at the heart of Buddhism and shamanism is energy medicine in both. And that this is actually the place where they meet, is in the understanding of the finer elements, the finer aspects of elements, the finer understanding of light, as Bob was talking about, the ground luminosity, the way in which light, especially the ground luminosity, interacts with the material. And sound. In both traditions, sound is used for the movement of energy, for healing, for accessing higher states of consciousness. So the general similarities, again, are both focus on the movement of energy and power from one place to another. Both use the process of ritual to direct power from one place to another. Both use the process of initiation to create a ladder for skill development. And both work with the elements, light and sound, as a basis for accessing deeper understanding. So these are, again, this is a broad brush. It's not definitive. It's a way of kind of stepping in to the discussion of the general similarities between the two traditions. Before I talk about the differences, does anyone have any questions or comments? You need, Andrea, can you be the one in charge? Just make sure that the light is on.
Thank you. Can you go over ground luminosity?
Bob, would you like to take that question?
What's that?
He would like a little bit more of an understanding of ground luminosity.
Ground luminosity. Well, I would, can we hold that up? Because when I have my time to talk, I'll deal with that.
Okay.
But you,
Okay,
so therefore,
okay.
please do it yourself.
Okay.
But one thing I don't think we should go too late on this first night.
No, I just have a little bit more. I have about another
And I will
10
definitely
minutes and
address
then
that.
it'll be
I will
yours.
start there.
Okay. All right. Any other questions before we go to the differences? Okay. All right. So now again, this is a broad brush. It's not conclusive. And I know many of you have studied both traditions and you might have a different view. Again, this is a point of departure for understanding. So shamanic practice is more service-oriented toward the community. Shamans are generally serving the communities that they live in. Siddhic practice is more oriented toward individual liberation. And that's not to say that there aren't Siddhas that serve the community, and it's not to say that there aren't shamans that spend a lot of time by themselves. Shamanic views movement of energy and power as something arising outside of the self. This is phenomenon that is arising outside the self. Siddhic practice views the movement of power and energy as arising from within the self. Everything is a reflection of the mind. Right. Shamanic practice focuses on middle world or mundane events and healing practices. In most of the work that shamans do is in the middle world or in the mundane world. And that's not to say they don't have, and they must have, a very active practice in the other worlds of the shamanic cosmography, which are the upper world and the lower world. And I'll be talking more about this cosmography that is common to most shamanic traditions tomorrow, where they establish relationship with compassionate beings in their own realms, but they wind up calling that power into the mundane world, the middle world, in order to do the work. And Siddhic practice focuses on supra-mundane concerns. They're interested in the transcendent. They're, usually moving toward a sort of, again, transcendent understanding beyond the mundane world. And shamanic practice has a primary focus on understanding the power of the natural world. This is the focus in shamanism. And Siddhic practice has a focus on understanding the power of the universal flow or ground luminosity. And again, that's not to say that there are not shamans that are not interested in the universal flow and that there's not Siddhas that are interested in the power of nature. But the focus is on understanding the power of nature for shamanic practitioners, and the focus is on understanding universal power for Siddhic practitioners. So again, you have shamans being service-oriented in the community, Siddhas being more oriented toward individual liberation. The shamanic person, the practitioner, sees phenomenon arising from outside the self. The Siddhic practitioner sees phenomenon arising, the same phenomenon arising from within the self. Shamanic practice is focused on the middle world or the mundane world. Siddhic practice focuses on the upper or supramundane transcendent worlds. And shamanic practice has a primary focus on the understanding of the powers of the natural world. And Siddhic practice has a primary focus on understanding the universal flow or the ground luminosities Bob is getting ready to talk about right now. Anyone have any questions about or comments about these differences? Yes. We need the microphone in the back.
I was just curious, as you're outlining the differences, geographically, is there any sort of delineation, or I know there's shamans from many, many different cultures. Are there also, I know, I guess, less historically about Siddhas, and just wondering if you could give examples of like, is there many cultures with both, or is there predominantly one coming from one culture and one coming from another culture? And I'm just curious a little bit more of a background on that.
It's a good question. So 95% of the cultures that have ever been on the planet have been based in shamanic, earth-based wisdom practices. So shamanism is very widespread, and everything that I have said, interestingly, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow, the interesting thing about shamanic practice is you have so many similarities across time and space. And that's a very fascinating thing, and we'll discuss that. The Siddhic traditions focus primarily in India, Himalayas, Central Asia, Tibet.
Somewhat it may be connected.
It's all here, right? It's all connected.
I'm not going to interrupt.
Yeah.
I have some
No, go ahead. So the floor is yours, Bob.
Well, I think shaman, what is called shamanic, it was normally associated by people with non-literary cultures, oral tradition cultures, tribal, more close to indigenous. People have all terms like that. What do you call it? Siddhic, but really the Buddhist and Hindu tradition, but even I would even say primarily Buddhist, since Hindu is a little bit half Buddhist, although they don't know it anymore. And the Buddhist tradition is a kind of, you could say it's an intrusion of the shamanic connection to nature and earth within a literate tradition. And that's why it is elaborated to both of them. But a lot of the Siddhas, in relation to that literate tradition, the universities that it produced and the institutions that it produced and the social transformations that it produced in a big literate culture. I think among the Mahasiddhas, they also went out among sort of indigenous people. They are the ones among the Buddhists who actually went. They were like the anthropologists, the magical anthropologists, who went out with the tribals and the Tibetans and the Japanese and the Indonesians and the Central Asians and so forth. And there is a speculation that the word shaman actually comes from the Sanskrit word shramana, and which means people translate it as ascetic, and but I don't. I translate it as a vacationer, a dropout. A shramana is someone who wanders seeking the nature of reality, or seeking liberation, seeking compassion, seeking happiness, and so that the word shaman, as it sort of developed in different Central Asian languages, came from shramana, and they were Buddhist, Hindu, Jain shramanas who were, and Buddha himself is called Mahashramana, the great shramana, so the great vacationer, the great dropout. And Buddha attained enlightenment under a tree, which is always connected with the shaman, the tree that goes from heaven to earth, to the underworld, its roots, Buddha was born under a tree, out in nature. He was enlightened under a tree. He touched the earth in the moment of his enlightenment, and he passed away under a tree, under two trees, actually. Tried them both simultaneously. And but I'll talk more. I'm going to start from the beginning more about Buddhism when I come to my turn.
Okay.
When you tell me.
I'm done. The floor is yours.
Yeah? Yeah. So I'm surprised that's the first time also you called it Siddhic tradition. That's a new thing. You're doing a experiment. So the Mahasiddha, the word Siddha means, it comes from sad, which means both to practice, to perform, and to attain. And so Siddha is one who has obtained or attained. So a Siddha is one who has attained something. And then what they call a Mahasiddha means one who is a great attainer, and that means someone who has attained enlightenment within the human life. And so therefore Buddha is the first Mahasiddha, really, actually. And actually, several of you mentioned Vimalakirti. He is considered a Mahasiddha also, as a lay Mahasiddha. Buddha became a monastic Mahasiddha, but Vimalakirti is considered a lay Mahasiddha. And there is a Tibetan lineage of incarnations of Vimalakirti, actually, up till the present. I know one Tibetan teacher who was very, not frustrated, but he made the greatest joke, one of the great jokes that I've ever heard. He was a really well-regarded teacher, and he was living in Virginia toward the end of his life. He had a very devoted group and small community there. Some of them were graduate students at University of Virginia or professors there. Some were just people from the community of Charlottesville. And at some point towards life, the last year or two, they said they were in a particularly, grateful and devoted mood. And then one of them said to him, Keshala, you're so amazing and so kind and so wise, and you've been such a great example to us and a mentor to us. How come you're not a reincarnation? And so he said, well, I always wanted to be, but all the good ones were taken. Because all the famous Mahasiddhas in India, there's one or another, some Tibetan lamas, their reincarnation. They say, and I hope it's true. I think definitely in some cases it is, maybe all cases, but some definitely, some maybe, some definitely not. Here and there, there's a little mix-up. But they really. So anyway, let me come back to the beginning, and where I want to start. What you call ground luminosity. Now, Buddha is misunderstood. The Buddha, the Mahashramana, the great shaman, I will say, under that enlightenment tree, calling on Mother Earth, who then witnessed for him that he had the background. Before he was enlightened, he had an amazing experience, like a super fast film running backwards of all previous, endless, infinite, beginningless previous lives, because there's no beginning to life in the Buddhist physics. According to Buddhist physics, there's no first beginning of anything. Things arise out of previous things, and everything is a beginningless continuum, endless continuum. And he remembered all his previous existences, limitless ones, and therefore he remembered having been every conceivable type of sentient being. And then even more awkwardly, naturally he had to get enlightened after that. And even worse, he then remembered everybody else's previous existences. Which if you think, they don't underline this in the normal way they tell the story, but if you think about it, if you had a vision like Don, did you say your name was Don? Yeah, Don, like Don did when he tasted of the vine and the flower of the ayahuasquero in Peru. If you suddenly felt that you had been every conceivable kind of creature, beginninglessly, beyond even what you can temporarily remember, and then you suddenly saw that in everyone else. Then what the inference is, or in that case of someone who's viscerally experiencing that, the graphic experiences, you would consider yourself completely intertwined with every other being, infinitely. Because, and the way that the Buddhists like to say it for practical purposes to meditate on later, which would mean that every conceivable sentient being, including every insect, every tick, as well as every other human being, had in many lifetimes previously been your mother, which means you would have been given your body from her body. So you would have that kind of visceral sense of interconnection. You, of course, would have been everybody else's mother, which you'd rather perhaps not remember because it was so much work. But on the other hand, you'd be grateful because they'd all been your mother. And you therefore had a gratitude to them that you'd had a life that came from them. But that's like a sense of visceral connection with every single living thing, which is how, and then you attain nirvana. Luckily, we're sort of forced to, I think, after that level of engagement with all beings, with all life. So that's how what Buddhahood is defined. Buddhahood is defined as what any living being has the capability of, and every human being in particular is very close to, actually, which is the ability to expand their sense of identification, where they identify with every single form of life. And I mean, really feel they are every single form of life. So in order to imagine it, I was give the exercise. Here we're sitting, all of us, in the circle. And each of us feels we're inside our skin in our spot in the circle. And we're looking out with our senses, hearing with our ears, and contacting the presence of the other people in some different ways. And yet, and then if we were Buddhas, suddenly we would have a weird sense of being everybody else simultaneously. Like if you've ever mothered an infant or fathered an infant, or been deeply in love with someone where you had some sort of transcendent moment, not in the sense of going off into space, but transcendent in the sense of feeling you were both people. You identified so much with the beloved, and not only romantic with a partner like that, but it's also infant, could be. Then you have to imagine that expanded infinitely, but not infinitely in some sort of empty space, but infinitely in physical reality, where you actually see. Imagine suddenly if you had a weird experience that you were looking from every pair of eyes in this room toward each other. That would be kind of strange, wouldn't it? Which one am I? Oops. Which am I? Actually, suppose when the Dalai Lama teaches, they say, when he teaches the compassion teaching, the universal compassion teaching, the special one called the exchange of self and other, it is said, I actually had that a little bit. If you're really listening intently, but at a certain point, you kind of float out of yourself and you kind of have to retrieve being in yourself. You sort of get into, his field creates a kind of space like that. I don't, I don't claim to any such thing. But actually, in his presence, I have felt that. And they say that's a sign of someone knowing what they're talking about. But it isn't really knowing in the sense that it's something inconceivable. You can't really explain a thing like that.
It's kind of like being.
But you can feel it.
Like being.
So that's what Buddhahood is, right? But then you see the lucky thing. That would have been a freak out on the other hand. Because, and in fact, in Shantideva's great book, which teaches that, his own ego argues with him and says, well, who wants to feel everybody else's feelings? I'm talking about my own feelings. I don't want everybody else's headache. Like, that sounds terrible. And he says, how can you say that would be great? And then Shantideva doesn't really answer properly because it's not a logical thing, but he says, you're just going to feel like the wild goose when it lands in the spring in the lotus pond, coming down in the summer after the winter or somewhere, and it lands in the lotus pond and it's so joyful landing in the pond, And he says, it's how he answers, which I don't think satisfied his ego completely, but maybe gave him a taste of some positive thing. So then Enlightenment came after that. Now, Enlightenment, the experience of it, there are many, many levels of it, but the ultimate one, according to the tradition, is that your wisdom is determined to understand everything. And the way you understand things is you analyze them. You take them apart. You try to figure out what they're made of, and down to the atom and the subatomic particle. The Dalai Lama says you can see him on YouTube talking with Indian scientists or Western. He doesn't really hit the Western ones that much because they're very fragile. But the Indian ones, you can find sessions where he talks to them on YouTube about how in India, the Buddha is honored by the father of the Indian atomic bomb, Ramana Raja Rao or something, his name, by saying that the Buddha and his greatest followers, like Nagarjuna, especially he mentions, they had the realization that quantum physics had in the last century of the infinite divisibility of matter, and that there's a kind of energy that is non-atomic, not just subatomic, microparticle, but not particulate at all. And that's a more powerful energy, actually, than the energy of any kind of particle, substantial, seemingly substantial thing, solid thing. And he said the Buddha already realized the infinite divisibility of any kind of matter. And that mind is somewhere in that. Mind is what can connect with this sort of field of energy that is beneath and within and then within and around and actually is the substance of matter. You know, it's different possible material configurations are sort of relational and secondary and illusory, and the energy itself is beyond the duality of mind and matter. Buddhists the higher level in Buddhist thought would not agree that it is just mind. A lot of people will say it's just all mind, but that's actually meaningless. It's a kind of reductionism in the opposite direction from the materialists, who say it's all matter, even though if they learn the lesson of their own quantum physicists, they realize they don't know what matter is. In fact, because you can't find it. That Higgs boson stuff, you know, boson, you can tell by the word boson. It's a Higgs BS. It's just justifying all these expensive atom shattering things that they do, you know, to get more billions to build more of them, so they can go live in Europe where they have good cafe au lait. You know? And they build them in subways under Switzerland and France, and they're moving them to Provence now. They're making new, bigger, more expensive ones. So they have to act like they discovered something. What they discovered a long time ago, almost 100 years ago now, they discovered that they can't discover the ultimate nature of it. It eludes discovery as something outside yourself. But on the other hand, you can experience being that, because that's what everybody is, actually. But that's where they draw the line, because they're scared of it, you know. But the Buddha did that, you know. He entered what you're calling them ground luminosities. They have all these expressions, and we have an expression clear light, prabhasvara in Sanskrit, asal in Tibetan. But there, when I write it, I only write it in one word, clear light, because it's not a bright light. The bright light, the moonlight, sunlight, and even a kind of bright darkness, which actually your little song is touching on when you say sun, moon, earth, because earth is dark. So those are the three subtle mind states in the Siddha physics and also meditational phenomenology, but also physics. And then the clear light, its analogy is like twilight, not bright and not dark. A kind of thing where everything is made of light, and therefore there's nothing, no brightness and no shadow. So there's nothing obstructing the light. It's all light, if you follow me. And once it's all light, it doesn't need to be bright, because everything is light. So one thing is not necessarily shining on another. And actually it's tricky, because it's an infinite light and an infinite energy. And that makes it quiescent, because everything's already done. There's no need to do anything. So it is like love, in the sense of it's available for any need. If anyone who's aware of that, being such light, can draw anything that they need out of it. And it's inexhaustible, because it's infinite. But it doesn't do anything itself. Like, it doesn't create the world or something like that, and create worlds to people, because then they might suffer, some of them who are ignorant. And so it's not blamed for creating. It is the world already. So this is the vision of nature, of the Siddhas and of the Buddhas, and I actually believe of all shamans, actually, as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Really, I really believe that. I don't think there's a difference, because although you don't use that language, but compassion is the basis of all indigenous people shamans, and compassion is the basis of anyone who has found that they are this light, and everyone else is this light, and this light is completely satisfying. It's so blissful that you don't need anything. And it isn't something you possess, actually. It possesses you, actually. And you see it as everything else. And then the one thing that bothers you in that situation is another living being who's made of that and is that and doesn't know it and is struggling and feels discontented and unsatisfied and frightened and fighting to get more and like, you know, cleaned off of other things and doesn't want to melt into it all. And then you can't rush and bomb them into bliss because they already are that bliss. But you can't, by just reciting some formula, that won't help. Even if they believe that, they have to, there's methods whereby they can experience that. So in other words, in the shamanic calling, what I'm trying to say about shamanism, now that I'm retired, I'm reviewing things. And the shamanic calling, that young person, if she was just seeing powers of nature and then nature was doing this and then she was going to manipulate this and that power here and there, she would have collapsed and she would have been finished. Somehow, by being pulled apart, they enter the ground luminosity. And then they realize that it's all right. And then they are receptive to the bear and the eagle and the whatever and the tree and the whatever it is. Because actually, naturally, they find this light being, in a way, they find their Buddha nature, you could say. They don't have the set of concepts and all this complicated stuff. They don't need it because everyone doesn't need it because everyone has this, because everyone's already made of light.
Yeah, you're describing a particular initiation called the Dismemberment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that the calling is something like that. I mean, it may not be like look at her. She couldn't eat anything. She totally turned in because nothing was meant anything to her in front of her in her Swedish skull, you know, because she was feeling all this destruction of these living beings, or because she had expanded into this clear light naturally. She didn't even have language for that, but she had expanded into it, and she felt that. That's what happens when you are open enough, when you are ripped open in that case, or consciously give yourself open. You feel everything, and if you find a ground where you find this infinite energy and it sustains you, you're in the ocean of it. You are the ocean of it. Then that any part of it is experiencing where it is as a horrible suffering situation, it completely grips you. And then you go and serve your society as a shaman. You come back together, and then the different beings around, like the bear and the eagle and the this and that, and they come and you get your special identity and token and whatever, and you get your energies like that. But you don't get them from saying, now I'm going to get a Ph.D. as a shaman, and now I'm going to go and be a shaman. It comes naturally out of the reality of the world.
That's right.
And whether you have the name of Buddha or whatever, or even you have the idea of religion, you don't actually have the idea of religion. You just are a natural healer.
Right.
And you just don't tolerate suffering. You can also do it because you see people will be all right because you can follow them through death. And you can realize that death is only a stage of opening. And then there'll be a new enclosure, and then the idea is to try to make it less constricted. Because the more constricted it tries to be, when it is just a field of infinite energy, clear light, the more stressful it makes itself. You follow? So death are brief moments of being able to identify with everything. But everyone has. You don't have to be religious, you don't have to be Buddhist, you don't have to be whatever. It's a big shock, of course, to Carl Sagan or some fanatic materialists when they don't enjoy being nothing.
Right. Bob, it's 9:00.
I know. Well, that's okay.
Just so you know, you just said you didn't want to go too long.
I mean, I don't want to go too late. No, but well, I can shut up.
No, you don't have to shut up. I'm just letting you know.
I'm just beginning, though.
Yeah, I know. And you said you didn't want to go too long, so I'm mentioning it.
Just a few more minutes.
Bob,
I'm just trying to embrace the shamans, because they are the compassionate people. And it doesn't mean that there are not pseudo shamans who adopt a role and then they act like idiots and they become, they seek whatever, they seek domination. But actually, really, shamans are there to serve people, and then they call in these energies, and then people, whatever their different mythologies and cultures and sense of ancestors and all these kind of things that people have, and then there are all kinds of beings around, then, there are different ways they'll express it in different cultures. And so Buddha was this shaman. And then Buddha didn't, there's no early Buddhism that's just some Theravada business. But in a way there is too, because he taught Mahayana, this is the non-duality that I'm talking about. And non-duality means that whole thing of transcendent doesn't work in non-duality, because you transcend into being everything. You don't transcend into going off into space. In people who are dualistic, religious people often, since they are in their struggle of trying to be themselves and keep away other things, instead of being everything, opening to being everything. People who are beings who are like that. And human being is relatively open compared to other kind of animals. Other kind of animals, they have hard shells, the snail with a shell, a lobster with a claw, and the claws of animals and fangs and things, the scales, the human being is like soft and wimpy and like just all intertangleable, and like easily dentable and really like whatever, Skeleton, the hard part is inside and all this soft stuff is outside. Unlike insect where the skeleton is outside. And so, but that vulnerability of ours, though, is part of our seeking this feeling, intuiting the ground luminosity, which is not just some sort of neutral thing like a field of light that you can go into and then escape from everything. Unfortunately, so many spiritualities, including in Buddhism, think the big thing is what I always like to call the cheap oneness. And it's where, I got so stoned and I was really worrisome and all these things were creeping around and these great serpents were rising. Kundalini was coming out of my ears and I didn't know the tree was a tree, whatever, and I was all lost and flowing around, and then suddenly it just became just light, and then it was all one and none of it was there and I wasn't even there, but I felt a release. And that's why I want to get back there. That was so cool. But that's just a stage. Because the real thing is being like that and be engaged with other being. Because the other beings are still there. They didn't disappear into that thing. The ones who are like fighting it, they're still there. And when the expensive oneness is where you unify a kind of release experience like that with relationality. And so emptiness, what the famous Buddhist emptiness is nothing but the discovery of relativity. In fact, complete, sentient, blissful relativity. That's what it is. So that's all. I'm just undercutting the differences.
Good.
And
well, Bobby, I did say that at the heart of both is energy medicine, what you're describing.
Well, in a way, yes and no. In other words, yes. Of course, you can say that, and it would be good. It's probably better than whatever I'll say. But finally, anything you say about reality, you can say the opposite.
Sure.
And because there's no dogmas, that's the one thing about relativity. Anything you say is only relational, and there are more and less useful things to say in specific situations, of course. And there's better and worse, laws of physics and this and that, but none of them are absolute dogma. Like science is supposed to be, even though they became dogmatic materialists now, because they're so scared. They're all frightened, even PhDs and even Harvard and even lab and even with nuclear bombs, they're still scared witless. All of them. Scared of death, Just I'll be nothing, so then that's fine. That's it. Whew, at least I'll be nothing. It's like the ultimate bunch of heroin addicts. They want an anesthesia. Really, that's total fear-based material. Dogmatic materialism is utterly fear-based. So anyway, that's what we're all talking about, right? And we have to overcome in a way where we are in reality now, in the wonderful new age that we're approaching, and we're in this darkest moment before it dawns, is the duality between so-called civilization and so-called native cultures. Because the so-called civilization, that as we are doing it, is all based on destroying all the natural things, as she's so brilliantly said, And yet, there's nice parts of it, but because there's the Swedes do have in the short summer, they have a nice garden and they make wonderful schnapps, They have a good time eating weird crayfish. I can't deal with a crayfish, but they do. Really good at it, if you know Swedes. So anyway, now I'm concluding. And so this relates to Menla sleep yoga, and the hikers can do that too. And we have special sleep yoga here. And the sleep yoga means that because we all grow up, even if we're sort of, quote, spiritual, unquote, or religious, we've all grown up going in science classes. And all these authorities at Harvard and MIT and Columbia and UCLA and wherever, Oxford and Heidelberg and whatever, what have you, Tokyo University, they have assured us that reality is material. And there's no soul, and really the mind is an epiphenomenon of the brain. It's an illusion that you exist as a mind, and you have no soul. And there's no meaning to life, ultimately. It's a random accident. Humans are random mutations, maybe the only one in the infinite universe, or maybe it's not infinite. And it came from a big bang, maybe. And so we all have a subliminal sense of that. That our material thing is all there is, we do. And therefore, when you fall asleep at night and you go into a darkness, you go into the earth, which is this dark unconsciousness. So there's a subtle, subliminal, seeming confirmation that when you die, you're going to just be unconscious because you're going to be in nothing again. You follow? The illusion of the mind will stop when the brain is no longer has blood and the heart doesn't pump and the brain flatlines, as they say, right? And therefore they were so mad when that guy went to heaven, and he was a neuroscientist. Even he was at Harvard or Carnegie Mellon, what heresy. And he said, yeah, his brain had stopped and he died with this weird virus. And then he was all in heaven for a while the brain was, and he had experience outside the brain. That guy, whatever his name is, they really went and got on this case. They were so upset. And they have all kind of alternative explanations. So when you fall asleep, you mustn't think that the Menla yogas don't indulge in the inference, which is maybe subliminal, that since I go unconscious and then I relax, I'm kind of experiencing being nothing when I sleep. I mean, I want to be nothing because I want to be asleep. I don't want to keep worrying about whatever it is. But if I don't fall, I want an ambient. But actually what happens when you let go of your sort of control of your boundaries, close your eyes, put in the earplugs, snuggle on the pillow, cuddle under the covers, lock all the doors, tell everybody to be quiet. What actually happens is all your cells and all your energies merge with the infinite energy of the ground luminosity. And you're sleeping in clear light, transparency. And that's why you feel energized in the morning. Because any place in your cells, at any place anywhere that needs a little something, a little boost, can draw from this bed of infinite energy. And it can be replenished, and therefore you are replenished. Why would nothing? If you are lying in nothingness, why would that replenish you? But because you are just as much it as anything around you is, naturally you don't experience it as an object beyond your boundary, but you let go of your boundary, so you're open to being infinite light. Do you follow me? So the Menla sleep yoga of this Menla, our tradition here, is that you reflect. Now when I've fallen asleep, I am going to lie in the bed of infinite energy, of this twilight, infinite, in a way, love. But it's not bothering, it's not the kind of love that molests me. It's because it's my own nature. But any piece, any fingernail, any sore thing should be replenished by it. But if it's holding on, if it's not admitting it, then it doesn't. Then It still hurts when I wake up, but it should be replenished by it if the field is open, okay, when I let go. So that's sleep yoga, okay? Do you want to try that?
I'm in.
Okay,
All right.
so have a good sleep.